You could probably name 5 World Cup winning captains. Maybe 6, if you're insufferable at pub trivia, out of 22 tournaments. 22 men who climbed those stairs first, trophy in hand, while millions watched and most people forgot their names by the following Tuesday. Some were legends, some were absolute nobodies, who happened to be standing in the right spot at the right time, wearing the right armband. All of them are on one list, and by the end of this video, you'll know it better than the pundit currently getting paid to talk about it. Here is exactly who they are. Let's start at the beginning. 1930, Uruguay. Captain Jose Nasazi lifted the very first World Cup ever awarded, on home soil, in a stadium his own country built specifically for the occasion. That's confidence. Or possibly just really good real estate planning. Nobody outside Uruguay remembers his name today. Doesn't matter. He's first on the list forever, and forever doesn't negotiate. Italy dominated the next 2 tournaments, because apparently 1930s Italy just really wanted the trophy. Gianpiero Combi, a goalkeeper, lifted it in 1934. 4 years later, Giuseppe Meazza did it again in 1938. An attacker this time, same trophy, same country. Then the world took a short, unpleasant break for an actual world war, and football politely waited its turn. Uruguay struck again in 1950, and this one comes with a story Brazilians still don't enjoy telling. Captain Obdulio Varela led his team into Brazil's own stadium in front of nearly 200,000 fans who had already mentally started the celebration parade. It didn't go how they planned. Brazil still has a name for that match. It is not a nickname you'd put on a mug. West Germany's Fritz Walter lifted it in 1954. Brazil finally broke through in 1958 with Hilderaldo Bellini, who, fun fact, is credited with starting the tradition of players holding the trophy above their heads, presumably because just carrying it looked insufficiently dramatic. They repeated in 1962 with Mauro Ramos. Different captain, same trophy, same country, twice in a row, no big deal. Now the names you actually recognize start showing up, so pay attention, this is where the quiz gets easier. Bobby Moore, England 1966, not a goal scorer, a defender. The calmest man in a stadium that was, by every historical account, absolutely losing its mind. Carlos Alberto Torres lifted it for Brazil in 1970, captaining a team so good that people who weren't even born yet still argue it's the best ever assembled. That's a hell of a legacy to leave for people who weren't there. Franz Beckenbauer took it for West Germany in 1974. Years later, he won the World Cup again, as manager. Show off. Almost nobody in football history has pulled off both, mostly because most players retire and immediately forget how stressful the whole thing was. Argentina's Daniel Passarella lifted it in 1978, at home, under circumstances historians still argue about at length, usually with raised eyebrows. Italy's Dino Zoff followed in 1982. A goalkeeper, 40 years old, still the oldest man to ever hold that trophy above his head. 40. Some of you can't hold a plank for 40 seconds. Then came Diego Maradona in 1986, who more or less carried an entire nation on his own back and made it look like a light jog. West Germany again in 1990, this time with Lothar Matthäus. Brazil in 1994 with Dunga, a defensive midfielder who spent his whole career being underrated and somehow still didn't care, which is either enlightenment or spite. Take your pick. France in 1998, Didier Deschamps, who scored exactly 0 goals that entire tournament and still walked away with the trophy anyway. Turns out composure counts for more than the score sheet. Rude, but true. Cafu lifted it for Brazil in 2002, the only player in history to start 3 consecutive World Cup finals, a stat that should honestly come with its own trophy. Fabio Cannavaro took it for Italy in 2006, a defender winning the Ballon d'Or that same year, proof that occasionally the armband and the talent actually agree on something. Iker Casillas lifted it for Spain in 2010, Spain's very first World Cup title in the country's entire footballing history. Only took them, about 80 years. Germany's Philipp Lahm in 2014, France's Hugo Lloris in 2018, and Lionel Messi, finally, in 2022, closing a career-long open loop in front of the entire planet on what everyone quietly agreed was his last real shot at it. The football gods have a flair for the dramatic and apparently a strict one-per-customer policy on that specific storyline. Here's the twist most casual fans completely miss, and it's the part that actually makes this interesting instead of just a very long list of men holding a trophy. The armband doesn't always survive an entire tournament intact. Injuries happen, suspensions happen. Whoever is physically wearing it the moment the final whistle blows gets the stairs. Not necessarily whoever started the competition wearing it back in the group stage. History remembers the guy standing there at the end. Nobody's checking the paperwork. Which brings us to right now. Every team still alive in this World Cup has a captain that almost nobody outside their own country could pick out of a police lineup, let alone a photo. Doesn't matter, not even slightly. Win it all, and that name gets permanently welded onto this exact list, right next to Moore, right next to Beckenbauer, right next to Maradona, whether the rest of us saw it coming or not. So here's the whole idea, compressed into one breath, because you've been very patient. 22 tournaments, 22 winners, some legendary, some quietly forgotten by everyone except football historians and their long-suffering families, but every single one of them permanently attached to the same trophy the second they lifted it above their head. The game has not changed. You have. You're welcome. Subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content. It means a lot. Also, tell your friend who insists Maradona wasn't a real captain. He was. Fight him with facts, not vibes.